If you remember, on the creation of the Batman episode, we spoke about Partners of Peril, which was a novelette from The Shadow. The Shadow was a pulp hero from, the 1920s and 30s. It was a magazine that Bill Finger was a reader of. It was one of the inspirations for Batman. And Partners of Peril, in particular, was a story that Bill Finger lifted beat for beat. And Bob Kane even lifted drawings of for Detective Comics number 27. So the very first Batman story ever was largely plagiarized, both art and story. There are many people, especially from the Shadow fandom, that say that it goes further than this, that Partners of Peril is just the beginning. And for this episode, I decided not to quote any one person in particular because there are talking points that are repeated broadly that I tend to disagree with. And I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I do want to share the types of things that people say and talk about what has merit and what doesn't, try to sort of contextualize. So what they'll say is that the Joker isn't inspired by Conrad Veidt. They'll say that that's the sort of legend making that, the creators of Batman are going back and sort of trying to rewrite history.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that it's not primarily inspired in that way. They instead say that he's inspired by a pulp story called The Grim Joker that was published in a magazine called The Whisperer in July of 1937, about 3 years before Batman #1. Here's some of the things they'll say. Here's the reasons they'll cite. They'll say, The Whisperer, the title character of the book, his alter ego is a police officer whose name is Commissioner James Gordon. This is true. That is something that is factually accurate. They'll go on to say that the author of The Grim Joker, the story, is Theodore Tinsley, who wrote Partners of Peril in the Shadow magazines, the same person. That is also true. They'll say that the villain of the Grim Joker is a clown-faced mob boss named the Joker. This is partially true. We'll get there.
Okay.
And then finally, they'll say that the man who laughs, Gwynplaine, isn't a mobster, and the Grim Joker is, and so there's a straight line to be drawn, right? Yeah. They'll say,
what?
So the Joker, from the pulp story that was in The Whisperer, the Grim Joker, is a mob boss. And that Batman's Joker is as well.
Yeah.
Kinda. Not really. See, this is why I'd take a little bit of trouble with it, right? They're saying it's more alike than Gwynplaine.
Yeah, so there's... I guess the problem I have with this is there's a difference between inspiration and, like, copying good art or something. Like, you can take inspiration from a bunch of things and glom them together.
Yes.
So this whole idea that, like, no, it couldn't be Gwynplaine because he wasn't a mobster. It's like,
yes.
What? That seems like some extremely flimsy logic.
You're hitting the nail on the head. The sort of like the vigor and the fervency of some of these fans would lead you to believe that it's a direct lift, just like Partners of Peril, right? And even if you believe that it's an inspiration, which is possible, I wouldn't rule it out. Although there's not a direct line, I don't think, and I'll try to illustrate it. That doesn't mean it's a lift, right? We acknowledge all the time, like, there's a lot that Zorro has in common with Batman. There's a lot that beats from Dracula that make it into Batman comic books. There are things that are inspirations without being plagiarism, right?
Right.
And, if you Google The Whisperer, The Grim Joker, Batman, you're going to find people who say it's plagiarism, right? So anyway, there's a less common claim than The Grim Joker being an inspiration, and that there's a radio episode from The Shadow from March 10th, 1940, called The Laughing Corpse, that is also a primary inspiration for the Joker. And I also think that's tenuous, and we'll talk about that as well. I think it's pretty likely that a lot of people that are saying these things have never watched The Man Who Laughs. They've probably never read The Grim Joker, nor have they listened to The Laughing Corpse. It's kind of, we think of, could you define meme for people, Brian?
Meme?
Yeah.
So I guess my personal definition of meme would be a recurring piece of internet media of some sort that has grabbed onto kind of grabbed onto society in such a way that it is repeated, generally in some sort of sarcastic or humorous or sometimes passive aggressive manner.
Yeah, I think in internet culture, we have like meme templates, right? Where there's like an image that has sort of a meaning, and then we sort of like map it onto something, or there's a video or a song or something that like, it's this joke, but with this one little spin on it, right? And so we apply this idea to different things.
Yeah.
If you go to the great sort of cultural repository of information that is Wikipedia, they would say that it's an idea, behavior, or style that spreads by means of imitation from person to person within a culture and often carries symbolic meaning. So this is a thing that's repeated, right? That like, if you have a fandom and you believe that it is of value and you want to sort of defend it or measure it upon, measure it against a different one, then you have a truth that you believe that you can repeat to sort of like prop that up, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this can get into like some philosophical grounds as well, on like the difference between facts and truth.
Totally.
And what I think you could probably describe some of these fan theories as lore at some point, because like you were saying, they likely have not done their own research. They haven't read or watched or absorbed these different references directly from the source, but instead took somebody's word for it.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, given that Partners Apparel is a lift, right? And I kind of did do some reading and research on that, and like that's a slam dunk. I expected when I started doing the research to feel the same way, that this was a lift as well, because I'd seen it online, I heard it repeated, and so when I got into the stories and sort of did some critical thinking about it, I don't know that I feel that way anymore. But I hope for the rest of this episode, maybe we can convey some of the learnings that I have. We'll summarize these stories, talk about it, and maybe you'll be convinced and you won't think it's really quite, the theft or the copying, or maybe you will. Maybe you'll feel more on sort of the shadow fan side, but we'll take you on that journey. How's that sound?
I love it. I'm totally down for it.